So let me tell you about Anna Karenina. She was a young woman of the Russian aristocracy, and in those days all the marriages were fixed by the parents. And she was married to, she was a countess. She was married to a count, a very wealthy man. All the aristocracy in those days were very wealthy. She was a beautiful, sensitive young woman, full of romance, of a desire for romance. And she was married to this very stern count. In his own way, he loved her very much. He was a very proper man. He was a very straight man. He was hard. He was hard, and he was unyielding, and he was self-righteous. But in his own way, he was doing the best that he could to lead a moral life. And in his own way, he really cared for her. He just had a lot of trouble expressing his emotions, and there was virtually no romantic love whatsoever. But he provided a home for her. Of course, they were wealthy. They had almost, it was like a palace with many servants, and she had a son, and the son had a tutor. She really didn't do any labor at all. And she had everything that she needed. She had a little boy that loved her more than anything, and she loved him desperately. So she didn't have this romantic love from her husband, but there was a form of love in her life. Her little boy was just mad about her. And she lived in society, and what they did in those days was that they traveled back and forth, and they had dinners with other members of the society. And her husband was in government, and he was, as in marriages today, he was gone a lot. He was working a lot of overtime, and his name was very important to him. And there's just one thing about human nature that never ceases to amaze me, that if we have good and bad in our life, it just seems so hard for us to praise the good and diminish the bad. It just seems so hard for people, including myself, to say, if that were me in that position, well, my husband's a little on the cold side, and he's a little pompous, but I know that he would protect me with his life, that I'm very important to him. The fact that I'm his wife is very important to him, and our son is very important to him, and he's provided all these wonderful things, education and a good future for our son, and I have this lovely home to work in. And so he's not romantic. Let me serve God. Let me find something. Let me love my son. Let me find something that's going to make up for the deficiency. Because if one thing is sure, as the sun rising and setting, nothing is perfect in this world. And there is no lifestyle that anybody will ever attempt to enter into that will offer everything that we need to meet every one of our needs. No lifestyle is capable of fulfilling every single human need that we have outside of marriage to Jesus Christ. And I have never yet met a person, well, some are more capable than others, that are capable of glorifying the good in their life and diminishing the bad and doing everything they can to strive to be happy. There are some people that do it. But some people just have a real problem with it, just getting their soul or their emotions under control. Well, Anna, she went to visit her relatives. She lived in St. Petersburg, and she went to visit her relatives in Moscow. And in those days, if you were a man and you were in the Russian aristocracy, either you were in government or you were an officer in the army. Those were pretty much the two things that you did. And she met this dashing young officer in the Russian army, and he was single. He had absolutely nothing to lose. There was a young woman that was madly in love with him that wanted to marry him, but he fell in love with Anna, and he didn't care. His selfishness manifested. The rules meant nothing to him. He didn't care that she was married. He didn't care that he would destroy her life. He threw everything to the wind and pursued her with a passion. And she did try to resist. She did try to resist. She asked him to go away. She told him that it was wrong. She asked him to leave, and he was so bold that he followed her back to St. Petersburg, and when her husband met her at the train, he walked right up to her husband, introduced himself, and asked for permission to call at their home. And that amazed me. I don't know about you, but I've seen this happen. I have seen men go after women, and they don't care what they have to do to get them. They love them, they lie to them, they do anything. In this case, the man really loved her. And shortly after they get her, after she gives up everything for them, they're no longer satisfied. Brethren, if you don't follow the rules that God has laid down, you are flirting with disaster. Well, he followed her to St. Petersburg. She resisted him on every turn. He made an open play for her. She was the talk of the Russian society. Everybody was gossiping. Her own husband went to her and said, "My dear, I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm warning you that there is gossip going on." A woman came to her husband. He defended her. And what does that mean? Her own husband, who was very aware of what was going on, was loyal to her. What is it with us women? We want romantic love. How about looking for loyalty in a man? Her own husband defended her to the gossip that came to him with the message. And he went back and he warned her. He was more than fair with her. He waited. He watched. He hoped. He spoke to her about it. He didn't rebuke her. He didn't revile her. He was frightened that he was going to lose his wife, because this man that was capable of loyalty, that was capable of faithfulness, that was capable of providing a solid, stable home life for her and their child, was not capable of giving her romantic love. And she was not capable of evaluating her situation and drawing the conclusion that she must remain married to her husband if she were to avoid disaster for the entire family, specifically her son and herself. You see, there are two ways she could have gone. She could have had all of this wonderful wisdom that we're preaching here, and she could have said, "I perceive, sir, that you have nothing to lose, and I have everything to lose. My child, my husband, my social position," because in those days, if you left your husband and you were an adulteress, you were ostracized. It wasn't like it is in America today. She didn't sit there and say, "I have everything to lose, sir, and you have nothing to lose, and you are trying to seduce me, and that makes you not a nice man." She didn't have the wherewithal to do that. Neither did she have the strength to rise up and say, "The law of God calls this adultery, and I therefore refuse you because the law of God calls this adultery." She was a very nice woman. Everybody loved her. Her servant's testimony about her was, 9 years I've worked in this house and never a harsh word from her. Her son adored her. She was one of the loveliest women you could hope to meet. Kind, generous, sensitive. What happened to her? She fell prey to her weakness. This man made no bones about it. He had no mercy upon her. She became involved with him. They started having an affair, and it wasn't enough for him. He wanted her to leave her husband and her son. He was not satisfied with an affair, and he literally had the nerve to enter into her house and demand that she choose, that she break up her home, that she leave her husband, that she abandon her son, break the little boy's heart. And he was angry with her when she hesitated. The ultimate selfishness, a man that had no children, that had never experienced marriage, that didn't even understand for a second what he was asking her to give up, demanded that she choose. And on Wednesday's message we talked about the tyranny of the weak. The tyranny of the weak. And I remind you that anyone that's outside of God's law or manifesting in their carnal emotions are weak. The natural man is weak when we're looking at him from a condition of morality. And he tyrannized her, and he pressured her. And her spiritual upbringing broke. And what did we say on Wednesday? If you yield to the tyranny of the weak, you shall lose your strength. His seduction was complete. She went to see her husband. She told him she couldn't bear him, that she couldn't stand him, that she had to leave him. And he told her that he was a public figure, and he had been preaching for years against divorce. He believed in the sanctity of the home. He believed in the sanctity of marriage. And he was hard. I don't deny it. He was a hard, harsh man. And he told her if she did this thing, she would lose all rights to her son. That he would never let her see her son. She would have to give up everything. And this lovely woman, admired by everybody, that wouldn't hurt a fly, yielded to her emotions. The religious upbringing that she had received was not strong enough to overcome her own weaknesses plus the pressure of this selfish, incredibly selfish, brash young man. You see, before he came into her life, she was dealing with the situation. She was married to a very cold man, I don't deny it, but she loved her son. God did give her an outlet for love. And her life wasn't that terrible. And she was enduring it. And then the second pressure came. You know the story about the straw that broke the camel's back? And don't forget, she resisted him. And he wouldn't leave her alone. He pursued her. He hounded her. And she broke. Her moral conviction was not enough. She left her husband. She left her son. And she ran away with this man who refused to give her a divorce. Because he refused to give her a divorce, she remained an adulteress. And in Russian society, that was a pretty bad thing to be. They couldn't go to any of the social functions. They could not be seen in public together. He had to leave his regiment. He was a soldier. And it's a similar situation that we studied about in Tender as the Night, where the man was a psychiatrist and he gave up his profession. This man was a soldier and he had to give up his profession, and they started traveling through Europe. The same thing that happened in Tender as the Night. Well, brethren, you can't spend your whole life traveling through Europe. Maybe if you've been working all your life, you think what a wonderful thing to be traveling through Europe for the rest of your life. But I declare to you that man was not made to travel for his entire life. We must have a purpose in our life. There must be something that we do that gives us satisfaction. It could either be an intellectual pursuit, it could be raising your children, it could be serving God, be doing something that makes us feel worthwhile as human beings. And these two people yielded to romantic love outside of the parameters ordained by God. And what happened? The same thing that happened in Tender as the Night. They both became very discontent. The lady missed her son desperately, and she found out the father had told him that she was dead. She longed for her son. The man missed his regiment. He missed his friends. He missed the prestige. He missed the excitement. He missed the social life. What am I saying to you? You cannot live on love. Men need their jobs. If you're a woman that wants to raise a family, you need your children. If you're a career woman, you need your profession. You cannot be happy just loving each other. We are a pluralistic people. We have many needs. And all of those needs must be met for us to be reasonably happy. And if you give up opportunities to satisfy all those needs in a godly way for romantic love, that romantic love will turn sour. They had enough money to live on. They lived in a big fancy house. And he became very restless. She became unhappy. They started bickering. They got on each other's nerves. And behind her back, because he couldn't face her, he made plans to return to his regiment and go off to war. Now, he didn't leave her for another woman. Hear what I'm telling you. He loved this woman. But living with this woman and loving her with nothing else was not enough to keep him happy as a human being. He needed his profession. He needed his friends. He needed his life as a Russian nobleman. She needed her son. She needed respectability. She needed social life. And what happened to their romantic love? It crumbled and disintegrated around their feet. And one night she told him that she had taken a box at the opera. And you couldn't do that in that society, but they went. And everybody whispered, and everybody talked, and a young man almost got into a duel because she was insulted. He could have lost his life, but the man apologized. So her night at the opera was destroyed. She was a fun-loving woman. That was a very important part of her life. She sacrificed it. You can't do it, brethren. You cannot give up everything for romantic love, because that romantic love will fly away like a bird and you will find that you have nothing. However, on the other hand, this woman had a brother. And at another part of the movie, it shows that her brother was a cheating husband, a promiscuously cheating husband, and his wife was thinking of leaving him. But she decided not to. And as this movie comes to a climax, Anna goes to visit her brother's house, and there is her sister-in-law with her 3 beautiful children, a happy, bubbling household filled with activity, as you will find in a family life. Her husband is there, still cheating away, and believe me, I am not advocating cheating husbands. But what am I saying to you? This sister-in-law said, Anna, I envy you so. You had the guts to leave your husband, to go after romantic love, and look at me. I'm trapped in this house. And the whole time, Anna's heart was breaking because her lover had just left her to go to war. What am I saying to you? The sister-in-law had not succeeded in achieving romantic love. It had eluded her, but she had a house, and she had 3 beautiful children that were living in her house. And she had a husband. He happened to be a cheating husband. Don't read anything into my words. I don't say that this is ideal at all. She had a family life. She had a social life. Compared to what Anna gave up for her romantic love, the sister-in-law was 100 times richer. But she didn't know it. She just thought that what Anna did was wonderful and that her whole life was ruined. She wasn't happy with what life had given her. 3 healthy children, 1 grandchild, a house that could accommodate visiting relatives, and a social life. And she was unhappy, envying someone who had rejected a godly lifestyle to follow after a wanderlust that, as you'll find out, destroyed her entire life. So if you make a marriage, brethren, and romantic love buds in that marriage, you are blessed. You are a blessed person. But if you've married and the years have gone by and the romance is waning, In this society, it's so easy to think about a divorce. What am I saying to you? I'm saying to you that to break up a marriage because romance is gone is a big mistake. It is a big mistake, brethren. You'll destroy yourself and you'll destroy your children. Don't do it. I confess, there are certain circumstances under which a divorce is permissible. This country's inundated with men abusing their own children. You pick up your kids and you run, sister. You get your divorce. But if you've got a man that's working hard to support you, if you've got some beautiful children in your house, and you've got some lovely things there, but romantic love is gone, if your husband's working long, hard hours and you're lonely, sister, that's no reason to get divorced. If you've heard that message around this nation today, you've heard a lie. It's a deception that will destroy you if you believe it. You can't hold on to romantic love. It's like a butterfly. Enjoy it for as long as you have it. But there are other things that will endure much longer. Decency, honor, respectability, commitment to your children and to your home and to your family and to a man who might be showing his love to you through loyalty and faithfulness. And then again, of course, you can always pray to the Lord to renew that love in your marriage. You never know what God's going to do, but brethren, you don't throw a man or a family life away because of a lack of romantic love. You don't do it, brethren. So just to finish the story, Anna Karenina went to the train station. She wanted to see her lover one more time before he left. And as she approached the train, the bands were playing and all the excitement of men going off to war. At least in those days, it was very exciting for men to go off to war. And she saw him. He was as happy as could be. He wanted that. He was just lapping up the excitement and the adoration of all the people waving at him and the bands playing. And his mother was there. And his mother was there with a young woman that she wanted him to marry. And he was flirting with the young woman. And Anna's heart was broken. And she backed off and she didn't let him see her. She gave up her son. She was forbidden to go into that house. She would never see him again, at least until he became a man. She lost her honor, her respectability, and I don't really know if she would have had enough money to live on. I guess she would have when he left. And as the train pulled out, she was so depressed, she threw herself onto the train tracks and killed herself. She gave up everything for romantic love, and her lover drove off to war amidst the music and the waves and the adoring looks of other women. And his life went on. This intensely selfish, immature, inexperienced young man seduced this woman and utterly destroyed her. Brethren, we must guard against the seducer. And in our country, in this hour, it's not just women being seduced, but it's men being seduced. And I say the same thing to the men. Leaving your wife because you don't think she's romantic enough, leaving your wife because you might not be thrilled with your sex life, brethren, that is not a reason to get a divorce. If she's faithful to you, if she's honest, if she's raising your children in a godly manner, you stick in and fight. You pray to the Lord to enhance you in the areas where you believe the relationship to be deficient. But brethren, you don't go breaking up a marriage for some silly little wanderlust like romantic love. That's a sign of spiritual weakness. And we must resist all spiritual weakness in our soul, for the deceiver is manifesting in great power in this nation, in this hour, and he is destroying the family. He's destroying the family, and he is destroying the nation. Let's get our values straight. Let's return to a sacrificial lifestyle. Work to build a family. Be a giver. Don't be a taker. Look to love your mate. Don't look to be loved. If you both look to bless the other, surely you'll both be blessed. Selfishness brings nothing but destruction. And romantic love, I'm all for it, within the parameters of marriage. And I'll say it one more time. If you fall madly in love with a man, sister, and you marry him, and that love lasts for 40 years, God bless you. But if it fades, as it so often does, you'll be left with your children, your home life, and everything that you've built therein. If you run off to an illegitimate situation outside of the parameters described by God, you can reap nothing but destruction and disaster and shame. Lay hold of the truth, brethren, the truth of God's plan to lead a godly, holy life, and let's start resisting this tendency towards self-satisfaction and self-gratification that's in this nation. It can do nothing for us but to utterly destroy us off of the face of the earth. And it will destroy our children and all of our descendants thereafter. We must return to a moral righteousness, a moral strength, and a life in the Spirit of God. And all these things shall be added unto you. But when you seek after them yourself, when you chase after them, when you pursue after them, when you lust after them, brethren, you have started on a path that will spiral you downward unto your destruction. Glory to God.